Today we'll be discussing addiction with special guest Dr. Jason Giles. This is Doctor versus Comedian. I'm Dr. Asif and this is the Doctor of Laughs.
Not a real doctor.
Ali Hassan. Now, normally, every episode what I do is I pick a topic for Ali from comedy and entertainment, and I question him about it. Then Ali picks a topic from medicine and health and grills me on that topic. But today is a special episode. Today we'll be discussing addiction with our special guest, Dr. Jason Giles.
There's no entertainment topic this week, but do check out some of our related episodes in the archives on John Mulaney and Matthew Perry. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Jason Giles right now. Jason Giles, MD, is an addiction medicine specialist, author, and speaker. For over 2 decades, he's helped more than 10,000 patients overcome substance use disorders. Dr. Giles combines clinical expertise with personal experience. He's navigated his own journey to recovery 25 years ago. His approach is grounded in empathy, innovation, and an unwavering commitment to elevating the standard of care in addiction treatment. Dr. Giles is also the founder and medical director of Addiction Doctors, a leading telemedicine practice specializing in comprehensive addiction care. And you can check out his groundbreaking book, Outsmart Your Addiction. Folks, Dr. Jason Giles. Dr. Giles, we don't always start with an origin story, ironically, although you think we should. But in your case, I think yours is so important, and it shaped your entire career, your approach to medicine, the very way that you live. Can you just sort of briefly share your background, your personal story with addiction?
Yes. First of all, nice to be on your show. Thanks, fellas, for having me. I appreciate it, and grateful to be here. Grateful to be here on the show. Grateful to be here on this side of the grass, honestly, because 25 years ago, that was not, I'm getting close to 26. It was not guaranteed. That's my Zoom background, by the way, that looks like I'm in the back of a car with the trash truck going by. So they've got these really cool backgrounds now. You got to dig around to find this one. No, I'm actually in a car. I'm actually on my way to an addiction medicine conference in Palm Springs, but I didn't want to miss the show with you guys. So 26 years ago, things were looking pretty bleak for me from the inside, but from the outside, you would say maybe this young doctor in his senior year of anesthesiology residency at a major university hospital has it all together. He's top of his class, doing complicated cases, on the launch pad for a very promising career. That's how it looked from the outside. From the inside, the pressure, the stress, the feeling of, you guys have covered this in some of your other shows, about being an imposter, about not believing that I deserved to be where I was, despite all the hard work, despite all the school, despite all the tests. I didn't think I was good enough. I was behaving like I was, but as I got further down the road, I felt worse and worse about that. And then probably, I don't know, but probably something about my childhood growing up with my alcoholic father may have been a formative influence in this self-understanding. But 26 years ago or so, I decided to get some relief from this internal stress or agitation. And what that looked for me, because of where I was, probably because of what I had access to. And when I say what I'm going to say next, years ago, when I was telling the story, I would have to repeat the name several times for people to get it, because it's so exotic and strange and no one had heard of it. But now when I say fentanyl, everyone knows what that is. But back then it was you could only get it if you were associated somehow with healthcare. And since I was doing cardiac anesthesiology, I had what essentially was an unlimited supply of this stuff, not just high grade, but pharmaceutical, right? From Germany, the very best there was. And so I thought that I could manage the way I felt by adding some chemicals. And I saw the way the patients looked when they had this stuff swimming around in their bloodstream. And I wanted, the other thing about fentanyl that people may not realize, it's very short acting. So I didn't want to throw my life over the cliff. I just wanted an hour off from this pressure. I just wanted a little break. And so one fateful day, I took the plunge and had a faithful had that break. I got that break. Um, the bad news is I felt relief. The bad news is it worked, and so I felt like I had a tool that I could go to on other occasions when I was overwhelmed. And pretty soon I had another reason to be overwhelmed, and pretty soon I used it again. And then the intervals got shorter and shorter. And looking from the outside, I know now that I was caught in the grips of a fentanyl addiction, fentanyl dependency. For a while, I tried to figure out every day how to stop. So I would promise myself when I woke up that I was not going to do this again, and I'd go through the whole day in withdrawal, sweating, nauseated, kicking basically this opiate as I muddled through the day of doing my work. I had this very crisp line of not being intoxicated while I took care of the patients, but I was in no shape. So I was in withdrawal. And then come 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whenever the workday was over, I would break my word to myself and use it again and repeat the cycle and back in withdrawal the next day and back trying to stop until one day I had the great good fortune for my department chairman to page me. This is in the days of pagers. Some of the listeners will remember what these devices are before smartphones and before any of that stuff. And
I still have one. I'm not giving it
oh,
up.
you got the pager? Yeah. Well, yeah, they're really cool. And if you remember, you would when you page somebody, you would put the number that you wanted them to call you back, and probably you did it the same way as us. We would put the four digits of your pager number after it, so okay, Asif is calling me from this number, and you call back, and that's who you ask for if you reach the ward. So I get this page, call back this number. I'm out of the hospital. I have used whatever I was going to use that day. I still feel sick. I'm in such bad shape that I can't. I'm no longer getting relief or high or any kind of good feelings. I'm just trying to get back up to zero, and I can't get enough to get back to zero. So I'm in withdrawal. I get this page. I don't know who it's from. I don't recognize the four digits. In your group, you know who's paging you because it's the same guys, and you're like, oh, okay, Mike's paging me. I'll call him back. I look on our little. We had a badge with this laminated card that had all the pager numbers, and I'm looking, and it's none of my colleagues. It's none of my residents. It's Now I'm looking on the faculty page, and I can't find it, and I can't find it, and I get all the way to the top of the card, and it's the chairman. So the chairman is paging me. And for those of you not in medicine, that doesn't happen very often that the chairman pages a resident, even a senior resident. So I kind of am getting the feeling that something is up. So I call. I had a phone. I called, and it was Dr. Moore, and he said, "I'm glad you called. Uh, Called to tell you that there's a large amount of fentanyl missing from the hospital pharmacy." And this is before tight oversight, and I was making up patients and signing it out, right? I was inventing patients. And finally somebody went through and said, wow, this guy's checking out a lot of fentanyl. So he said, there's a large amount we can't account for. No one's saying that you took it, but if it's all back in the hospital pharmacy by 6 o'clock, then this conversation never took place. And so here I am, right? Hot. He knows, I know. And I said the only way for the fentanyl to be back in the OR pharmacy would be if I were standing in the pharmacy. So I said, "Can I talk to you?" He said, "I was hoping that you would say that." So we met, and he said that there was a resident a couple of years before I had come through who overdosed and died in the call room one day.
Oh wow.
And as I got to know this story better, I had not heard the story because it's something that was swept under, or it was a different group. It wasn't, and maybe they told it and I didn't hear it. But um, because of that doctor who I did never knew, Dr. Moore, was his antenna were up, and there were things about my behavior. There were maybe how shiny and sweaty I looked coming to work every day, or that I always wore an OR gown, always, right? Because my arms were bruised and chewed up, and from from the injecting use. So fortunately, he spotted me. Fortunately, he intervened before something really bad happened to me. And fortunately, I was out of ideas. I didn't have any more plans. My plans were to manage my feelings with fentanyl, and that's where this got me. So I not because I'm especially noble or smart. I was out of ideas, and so the next round of, we want you to go check into this program. They're going to take care of you. Once you're all better, we want you to come back to the hospital. You're a great doctor. You're gifted, and we want you here, but you're sick and you need to get well. And what am I going to say? I've got nothing. I got my scorecard read 0, as they say. And so I just did what they said. And again, luck that because I was a physician, I just accidentally enrolled in the most successful treatment program in history, which is the diversion program for doctors. 90 to 95% 10-year success rates, partly because they got your attention in the beginning, but partly because when you live that long, the program's 5 years long. When you live that long, not using any substances, not managing your feelings, except the way healthy people do, it makes a new habit. And with that, I did go back. I went back to the hospital. I went back to anesthesia. I finished my residency. I stayed another year. I went into cardiac anesthesia. But along the way of this recovery journey, I fell in love with this work, and I wound up leaving anesthesia. Salud. I wound up leaving anesthesia, and and for the last 20 years, I've been an addiction medicine doctor, and that has taken me to all kinds of places. I took care of some of the most profile people in the world for about 15 years, and then about 5 years ago, with the lockdowns and all that stuff, I tried to figure out how to bring this message to more people. And so now I have a telemedicine company, and we take care of hundreds of patients a day at
Mm.
treatment centers, the best treatment centers all over the country.
I want to get
So
into the
that's how I got here.
telemedicine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I want to get into that too. I have two questions
Mhm.
just based on your history. One question is, did you have any history with addiction prior to the fentanyl and all that? Was there any, looking back at it, were you abusing alcohol at any time of your life when you were younger or
Is there
anything like that?
foreshadowing? You know, maybe, maybe. The thing is, because of the academic pursuits, there wasn't time. There
Mm.
wasn't time to get into trouble with that. You can't chase going to medical school and maintain much of a drinking habit. I remember when I was in maybe my second year of medical school, and some of the guys had some marijuana, and we got together and used that, and it was fun. It was hilarious. And then I was foggy and had trouble concentrating. I didn't feel sharp, and that was the end of that. It was it
Mm.
was too it was too expensive in terms of my mental focus, or my brain working. And and I said, "Oh, I'm definitely not doing that anymore." And and so one of the definitions of addiction is continued use despite adverse consequences. You would say, in that instance, I would, as an addiction doctor, I would say, well, you use this, had an adverse consequence, and stopped immediately forever. Probably not evidence of addiction. But I don't know. What if I had not been so busy or hardworking or focused or in pursuit of these goals? Maybe. I do remember this. I'll say this. My dad had trouble with drinking up until I was probably about 17 or 18. He stopped drinking, stayed stopped the rest of his life. But the growing up in that environment had an effect. And one of the effects it had is, I said, I am not going to be an alcoholic. I knew what that was, even young. And so I was always careful, um, mindful, controlling, I suppose. And you can say maybe that's evidence of alcohol use disorder, because most people don't try to control it. So maybe the horse has left the barn. But no, never got into it to that point. DUIs or any of those things. It's a
Got it.
great question. because I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of very curious about, addictive personalities, quote unquote. But I've got another question related to that, but I'll ask you that in a little while. I know Asif has something he wanted to ask you as we get started here too.
Yeah, it was your comment. So the study showed that anesthesiologists are at more of a risk of substance abuse than other doctors. So I guess the first part of that question is, why do you think that is? And then more broadly, are there certain careers, personality types that are then at higher risk for substance use and substance abuse?
Talking about in medicine or all careers?
I guess in medicine specifically, but then we could talk about other careers too. I mean, you've had so much experience, you've seen
So
everything.
I can speak a little bit to that. So yes, anesthesiologists do have a higher early presentation. So overall, doctors are the same as anyone in the trades or any other
Okay.
profession or anyone stay-at-home moms. The lifetime prevalence is the same. It's not that being a doctor makes it more likely. It does make it appear earlier in some specialties.
Hmm.
So um, emergency medicine, dentistry, uh, anesthesiology come earlier, so people will present sooner. Um, the most used substance by anesthesiologists is alcohol. It's not opiates.
Wow, interesting.
So
Interesting.
that makes them just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Maybe, and this is like how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. And I'll just spitball with you. Maybe that story I told of, I saw the effect on others. I wanted to look like they felt as they were drifting off to sleep. There may be some sort of environmental cue that says, well, you know what you're doing, and just be careful and that sort of thing. So
Hmm.
that may be part of it. There's a bit of a there's a bit of a cowboy personality associated with anesthesia and emergency medicine, and a couple
Hmm.
of other things like that, which you want, right? You want a bold ER doctor. You want a supremely confident anesthesiologist, because when you're turning blue, you want that guy or
Hmm.
gal to be able to get the tube in, so into the patient to make sure everything goes smoothly, or bleeding, or whatever the challenges are in the OR. So I think that may explain it. By the time people get to the end of their careers, everything catches up. Surgeons who are relatively spared young, they catch up when they're old, to the regular lifetime prevalence. So I don't think the specialties ultimately make a difference, but they may in terms of timing, right? Timing of when you recognize that you've got a problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Other
totally.
professions, yeah, law is a high rate of it. Dentistry is a high rate of it. Law enforcement, um,
Mm.
elementary school teachers. There's certain,
Wow.
yeah, there's certain, and maybe high stress situations uh,
Mm.
where you uh, it makes sense. My favorite story about that is the soldiers that went to Vietnam to fight in the 1960s. So it's a cross cut. It's relatively lower socioeconomic class of people who are drafted compared with the general population, but not true for the officers. And the prevalence of substance use disorder was around 90%. So essentially,
Wow.
everyone was drunk or high in the Golden Triangle, or both. And And then when they came home, when it was time to demobilize and come home, uh, 95% of the people who had substance dependence quit. They just stopped, got on the boat, got on the plane, came home. Very few of them brought their substance use disorders with them,
What
which
happens in
which
the
flies in
Golden
the face of everything we
Triangle
know.
stays in the Golden
Stays
Triangle.
in the Golden Triangle, and that's it. I think that's it. Is that it's
Interesting.
situational, right? It's environmental. It's a lot of terror mixed with a lot of boredom, and also once everyone's doing it, everyone's doing it, and once you come home, no one's doing it, so no one's doing it.
Mm.
So that messes up a lot of our understanding of what is addictive personality. Is this it's probably, you probably squeeze anyone hard enough and they'll look for some relief.
Hmm.
So the trick to getting well is to figure out other ways to deal with life.
I want to ask you about something that again, this may or may not be true, but something that I've always been told. And unfortunately, with the lifestyle I've chosen, I was a chef for many years and now comedy and acting and surrounded by general, wayward, ne'er-do-wells, fun-loving people, whatever you want to call them. Surround,
Huzzah.
huzzah! We've had our fair share of fun, and sometimes it's gone to a place where you see they're not having fun anymore. They're clearly trying to escape. So we're talking about a lot of use and abuse, but when it comes to the stoppage, is it true, as I've heard, that you have to want to stop for rehabilitation to be successful? Do you have to want to stop?
Great question. No, you don't.
Hmm.
You just have to have smart feet. So if you do the things that people who manage their lives without chemicals do, eventually that will stick. So the best data we have on that is from drug court. These people don't want to go to treatment. They don't want to get help, but even less, they want to go to county jail. So it's a two unpleasant alternatives. And so they pick treatment not because they're motivated to stop, but because they're trying to avoid a worse fate of being locked up. And those folks have the same success rate, sometimes better than people who come to the attention or come to the pursuit of help other ways. So um, what is it? A nudge from the judge, or a
Hmm.
strife with the wife, or a knock from
Hmm.
the dock. All those venues are forced upon people, and they don't know. I mean, the reality is, for me, I had no idea. Again, many years down the road, I had no idea what a great life awaited me if I would just let go of these ridiculous ideas. The idea that I wasn't okay, the idea that I needed something to manage my life, my feelings, and those are two huge errors. And so if you said, hey, you could have this great life. You could stay married for 25 years, almost 26 years. You could have two beautiful kids. Our daughter just graduated from Columbia University last week, our youngest. You could go on to help thousands of people on their, if you said those things, I would have thought you're crazy. It's not possible for a guy like me to have a life like this. So your question about, do you have to want it? I think the people don't even know what that is. They don't know how good it can get. I
Hmm.
had no idea. So no, I don't think that's the barrier. I do think that you have to be sick of the way you're living. I do think you have to
Right.
say, I don't want to live like this anymore. Um, it's more of a repellent idea that you're pushed away from. I just can't look at myself in the mirror again. I just can't let the people who love me down again. I just can't um go one more day of activity with no progress. So I think I think that's all you need. That's the threshold ingredient, is maybe disgust uh rather than yearning for a beautiful life, because you can't imagine how good it gets. There's no way to see,
Hmm.
and or otherwise you would never do that, right? If you knew, oh, it's going to be great, then fentanyl would not look attractive, and whiskey would not look great. So that's what I think about that.
But just to clarify, in Canada, there's a big push in certain areas of the country for forced addiction treatment, so involuntary addiction treatment. So I'm a bit curious what you think about that
California also
concept.
just passed a law last year to add um, involuntary commitment on the basis of substance use disorder. They have delayed implementation of it in California because literally there's not enough places to put the, I don't know, 150,000 homeless, which is essentially, I mean, mental illness also, but to a first cut, it's basically substance use disorder on the streets. So we don't have any place to put them. I don't know how Canada's set up for treatment. Like, what if they mandated treatment for everybody? Do they have enough space?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
I don't think so.
a buddy of mine is from Canada, from Toronto, and he texted me last night. He's got a friend right now who's got some serious heart problem, and no knock on the Canadian physicians, but on the system, they don't necessarily make it easy to get medical care. This guy has had 8 trips to the ER this year, and he probably has some obstructive cardiomyopathy, and they keep sending him back out because his appointment with it's this EPS cardiologist is sometime they can't do anything for him right now. So I appreciate mandated treatment. That probably would save lives. There's this pesky thing of free will and choice.
Mhm.
Ultimately, ultimately, Ali is right. In order to have durable recovery, you have to want it more than the other life. But it takes time to build it. Um, there's another mention, which is the public interest. So that's part of how methadone got started. Is it in areas where there's a methadone clinic, their crime went down because the people addicted to heroin aren't breaking into cars and stealing stereos because they don't have the craving pressure to go use, and so crime went down. So there's a public interest. Maybe that's true with so-called harm reduction, right? The needle exchange and so forth, and safe injection sites makes it so that the community doesn't experience the brunt of this group of folks making bad choices about their own lives. So I think I get it. I think it's do you guys know about contingency management? Have you heard about that as an approach for substance use disorder?
Tell us a bit more.
Contingency management is condensed. It's paying people for negative drug tests.
Mm,
Give them cash
yes.
for bringing in a clean urine, meaning they weren't using. And they've done all sorts of behavioral economic studies on this. What's the least amount of money you have to give somebody? And they've got it all the way down to $5 payable in 30 days after the clean urine. $5
Wow.
doesn't even buy
Yeah.
right. And so my read on that is it's not about the money. It's about the community. It's about the acknowledgement. It's about sense of accomplishment, I think, that the participants get. And it's about the feeling of love and connection from the people running the program. Interestingly, it works best on meth. It doesn't really work on heroin or alcohol. The alcoholics will keep your $5. They keep drinking, but the meth people is where it works the best. Okay, so zoom out a minute. Paying people to stay sober. Does that make any sense? Should we do that as a society? Give people money for doing something that's good for them anyway? Well, it turns out probably because the social burden of people stuck on methamphetamine is so high that if you can get them to stay sober, it's better for the community, better for the economics, better for hospital visits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this gets into all sorts of weird, bizarre world. What are we doing here? And
Hmm.
so I think that we don't know. We don't know. If you want to read about this stuff, uh, um, Rob McCoon has a book called "Drug War Heresies," and it looks at it from an angle of interdiction, and that has been a complete disaster, right? Total disaster. The drug war, and in some cases, it's probably saved millions of lives because they interdict these millions of pounds of fentanyl. And if you can keep it off the streets and you can keep the kids from using it, they're less likely to get wrapped up with it and die. So my answers are not crisp on this because we just don't know. We don't know what the best thing is. It's person to person, community to community, probably country to country. Portugal gives out heroin for people with,
Right.
right? Switzerland also. They have very successful programs. If you fall out of the program, you get a ticket, and the ticket means you have to go to the judge and explain why you fell out of the program. So it's like super compassionate. Um, China has a very different approach to substance use disorder. El Salvador also. So we don't know the answer. And you've got culture. You've got right. Some drugs are okay in some cultures. I have a friend who's Iranian, and You can't drink in Iran publicly, but
Mm-hmm.
inside the walls, different story, right? Just not out
Mm,
in front of people. And
mm-hmm.
opium smoking in the hookahs is like no one says anything about that. That's just what the men do
Oh,
when they get together. So there's
interesting.
this multi-layered, multi-layered problem.
So I just want to ask you one more. Another hot button issue in Canada is this, and it's related to what you were just talking about. Is this decriminalization of drugs? Obviously, marijuana here, lots of places, as you know, in the U.S. that's already happened. So, what are your thoughts on that from your perspective as a specialist in addiction medicine?
I think that for the end user, it's good to depenalize is probably the best way to say it. So the penalties guide people towards some kind of help, some kind of help. If your use has gotten you in trouble with the law, not just for the possession or consumption, but there's other crimes or other transgressions against society, then that's a red flag. That person needs help, and I think we have a social responsibility to try to help people with that. But locking people up for a habit, locking people up for trying to get out of discomfort, that has a very poor track record. I visited a men's maximum security prison in outside of Houston earlier this year, and I'll say everyone. There's probably some guy who was sober when he committed some crime, but for the most part, it's everyone was intoxicated. 90% of them were intoxicated or hungover or some in the penumbra of using that when they committed their crimes. So it would be great if we could eliminate substance use disorder in that particular population. It would be ideal, right? The people who would go on to commit crimes. I think I think decriminalization makes sense insofar as because you had a substance use disorder should not mean that you're barred from participation in life. Can't get hired, can't rent an apartment, basically marked with the scarlet letter A. I think that part's bad. I think we should be generous and forgiving because uh, if we're going to say that you have the wrong idea about your behavior and you need a different idea and a different behavior, then we should forgive people for their mistakes. They should not be chased around by their errors in judgment. Where others are affected, right? So if you were drunk driving and you hurt somebody while you were driving the car or worse, I think you should bear the responsibility for that because you're still a member of society. You're not exempt from the rules just because you were drunk in that case. So these are my opinions. So I think the criminalization has turned into its own problem. If you read Johann Hari's book, which is excellent, called "Chasing the Scream," he addresses the just outright racism in there. That a lot of these laws around marijuana, particularly, but heroin later, were used to as a pretext for the FBI surveillance of radical figures in the society and so forth. um, Harry Ainsley's, exporting of our drug policy to other countries. Essentially, if you want to be in the good graces of the U.S., you have to do it the way we do it. I think we've exported our war on drugs to many places at great detriment. So we need a rethink of that. I think I'm optimistic. We've got a new HHS director in Washington who understands our plight. He's himself been through it, speaks plainly about having gone through it. So I think I think a lot of people understand that this problem is not just say no, right? From Nancy Reagan in the 80s. It's a lot more subtle and nuanced. So, but I don't have I don't have a point and click answer for you about what to do because it's messy, right? It's messy.
Mm. Messy and the old this is your brain on drugs. Just
Any
don't cut it
questions? Yeah,
anymore. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Any
yeah.
questions? I mean, yeah, like 1,000. Where can I get
Well,
drugs?
listen. I don't talk about who they are because I still keep confidence with these folks, but I took care of some of the literally the most high-powered, most successful, most famous, wealthy people in the world. And almost to a person, by the time they got to me for help, they had the best year of their lives. Their movie went number one worldwide, their company went public, or the stock went up 3x that year while they were running the board,
Mm.
etc. And so the idea that you come in when you're a trench coat wearing, sleeping in the gutter, right? 5-day beard alcoholic it's just not true. Many people are functioning at very high levels at work or externally. But if you get below the surface and you see how they're doing at home and in their personal life and in their health, they're doing very badly. So this is your brain on drugs is, well, think about this is your brain a frying pan of hot oil? I hope not. It's more right. It's ridiculous. And so and furthermore, now you got me animated. And furthermore, not only is that not your brain on drugs, but afterwards, after you go through the experience, after you get sober, after you get your life together, the people, in my experience, the people who've gone through that, they're better than when they started, right? So they have humility, they have spiritual connection, they have deep connections to other people, they're honest, they're disciplined, they're conscientious, because you have to be. If you don't keep up those activities, if you don't keep up that lifestyle, then pretty soon a drink is going to sound good. Pretty soon a shot is going to sound good. You're going to drift back to that. So part of why I'm in this field is the patients. If you break your leg and you go to the leg broken doctor, the orthopedist, best he can do is make your leg like it was. That's the ideal.
Mm.
100% outcome is my got my leg back just like it was. In what we're doing, we best is way better than how you started. Way better. I
Mm.
mean, fresh perspective, helping others, integrated into the world, sleeping at night, liking yourself, and then what that does to your family and your children and the people you're around. So we're playing a very, very high stakes game. And no, it is not. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. This is your brain. This is the story you tell yourself, and you need drugs because of the conclusion of that story. Tell yourself a different story. Take responsibility for the parts of your life that are yours. Let go of responsibility for the parts of life that are not yours, not your fault. And you won't believe what happens. You won't believe how your life skyrockets. So no, I think the while you do have to say no to the substances, it's so much more than that. There's so much more on offer.
Yeah, it's very interesting that I know friends who have been through rehab are definitely better versions of the people they used to be, and I've never considered it in this way until you framed it like that. It's not best case scenario is you get your life back, you get a much better quality life. I've seen it, and I've never fully appreciated it. It's very, very
What I'm talking
fascinating.
about, yeah, right. It's
Um,
cool stuff. Yeah, exactly.
let's
I'm hooked.
talk
I'm hooked.
about you're hooked. It's good. Let's talk about the telehealth, or at least here we call it telehealth. You
Yeah,
call it
Telemedicine.
telemedicine, which
yeah.
is yeah,
Telehealth's good. Telemedicine, telepsychiatry. Yeah, there's
yeah.
different versions of it.
So
Um,
you know
so
we've
this is
all
one of
had a
those things
little
like,
dose of it. We've all gotten a little snapshot of it from when anyone who went or tried to go see their doctor during COVID got a little hint
Mhm.
at what that feels like, and some liked it and some didn't. From your perspective, what makes you determine somebody is inpatient or outpatient, or does everyone start in, eventually graduate to out, or can somebody always be on an outpatient treatment?
So we at present provide the medical care telemedicine to treatment centers. So all of our patients are at treatment centers. So they're all in.
They're
They're
all
all
in.
in and associated with a treatment center. There are programs that are delivered by telemedicine, which are not associated with a treatment center, where the patients aren't in. They're out, and they're dealing with counselors and therapists and case managers and educators and groups and so forth. it can all be done by telemedicine. This obviously grew out from the lockdowns, right? We can't go anywhere, we can't be in person, that sort of thing. Uh, this was happening anyway. Telemedicine was moldering along and so forth, and the lockdowns made it explode because people still needed to get help and they couldn't go into the office. And so we grew out of that also. We had to provide care for the patients. It turns out that mental health um, is enormously popular delivered this way by by video. About two-thirds of mental health visits last year, and it's going up, were delivered by telemed. So psychiatry, behavioral health, substance use disorder, counseling, all that stuff is it's actually, I think, and listen, I'm an old doctor, and so this was new for me learning this telemedicine business. Um, I think it's actually better. There's this funny sense of distance, but also closeness. So we're separate by the whatever the geography is. But even in this conversation, we're looking at each other. We're face to face. There's not a lot of distractions. There's no one else in the office we're worried about. My background looking like the back seat of a car, etc. So it's a weird discovery that we made that you can actually connect to people maybe more efficiently or better because listen, nobody wants to talk about his drinking problem. Nobody wants to talk about his depression or mental health challenges in a public forum. And if you go to the psychiatrist's office, you're probably sitting in the waiting room with other people who are thinking the same thing, like, oh, I wonder what Ali is thinking. And so you skip all that. It's more efficient care. Do I think the do I think it replaces medicine in all sense? Of course not. I mean, there's some things that just have to be done. Surgery, uh, pediatrics, a lot of stuff just has to be done in person. Obviously, obstetrics has to be done in person. But as we get better at taking care of people, we're learning that there's a lot of people don't want to drive to the office. They don't want to park. They don't want to get in traffic. They don't want to, right? So from a customer service, if we think about the patients as customers standpoint, I think it's good. I saw a book a while ago said the patient will see you now, which flips the script. It's the patient being in charge of when
Hmm.
the medical visit happens, and I think we're headed that way.
I have to ask you one thing. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know you're literally en route to an event,
En
a
route.
speaking event. But in looking at your some of your speaking topics, for example, one was called "Why Treatment Doesn't Work." I listened to a half an hour chat that you have on YouTube. I noticed very little, if any, mention of AA or NA, and it just made me curious what your thoughts are on what role those organizations play in somebody's recovery.
It's a great question. So personally, I love AA and NA and all the A's. They're
Hmm.
they're they're great because they're constructed on a spiritual framework that focuses on community and personal responsibility. And I think those are the three ingredients to get well. I think you have to know what this problem is. I think you have to be around other people, both for support and also accountability. And I think community is essential. So AA, but also church and Celebrate Recovery and analogous programs in Judaism and even in Islam. There are programs to help people deal with their substance use disorders that are run through the religious order. All that stuff is great. In fact, they probably have got more people sober even than AA, which is in the millions, and they're close to 90 years old. AA. What I say to patients who don't want to get involved in that because AA is messy. AA has some greats, but it has some stuff that could probably be improved. We know that this problem people get well and then they slide back and then they get well. AA is not very good at handling the slide back part. It's got newcomers and old timers, but there's nothing in between. The guy who got 10 years had a rough run from his company going out of business or his wife divorcing him or a health challenge, and then he gets back to it. We call him a newcomer again, even though he had 10 years. So there's some challenges with it, some modernization that probably needs to take place. What I say to people is that you don't have to go to AA, but you've got to find something like it. And that's a group of people who you can be honest with and you're in communication with them all the time so that they say, "Hey, Ali, I notice that you stopped going to the gym." And so somebody calls you out on your changes of behavior. Oh, well, the thing with the carpool and whatever. Hey, I've had trouble going also. Do you want to go in the afternoon? And you get that camaraderie and support because the opposite of addiction is connection, it's community. So so even though I'm a huge fan and participant and love AA, there's this tradition in the organization that we are not public about being in it, and that goes back to a time when there was a guy who said, "I am AA, I'm the head of it," and then that guy drank and wound up in the gutter, and they're like, "Oh, this AA doesn't work." So we don't want to, and I think now in 2025, most people know no one is the president, no one speaks for it. I don't speak for it, but I do speak in favor of it, which is I think it's good so long as it fits with your sense of self. The Buddhist Dharma, the celebrate recovery. I mentioned them. The um, refuge recovery, smart recovery. There are a lot of derivative movements that people may feel more comfortable in. Go outside is what my wife would say. Go outside. So nature, fresh air, sunshine, flora and fauna. That's where she gets her spirituality. So it doesn't have to be there. But thanks for saying that. Should I say more about it? You think AA in public stuff, or I
No,
think it's
I
you
think that's
roll
great.
your own.
I
Roll
think
your
that's
own.
great. I just, and I'm glad you mentioned your wife's perspective as well. Somebody was talking about Japan when you are feeling depressed. The prescription is go bathe in nature.
Yes, I'm pragmatist about it. So sometimes, yeah, listen, exercise turns out to be one of the best strategies as well. If you start to develop the routine, take care of yourself, watch the changes in your body, take that weight off, add some definition, make some friends, fellow rats at the gym. That can be a pathway toward recovery, or at least a major plank in it as well. So you sleep better. You're once you start taking care of yourself, you probably don't want to smoke cigarettes. You probably don't want to eat junk food. You're leaving the red dye off the Skittles, all that stuff. And so it's Cicero, the Roman orator, said, "No man is free until he submits himself to a set of laws." So you have to find some organizing principle, some discipline, some routine that you submit to, some law that you say, "Well, I'm go to the gym because I'm a gym goer. I just go," or something like that. "I go to AA because I'm a guy who goes to AA," or "I go to church," or "I meet my friends in the park and we talk," or whatever it is. You have to submit yourself to a set of laws and let that discipline you. Otherwise, your life is a disaster.
I mean, I hate to leave it on the words, otherwise your life is a disaster, but I also think that it's very clear how much knowledge can be gleaned in a chat with you, and that the people of Palm Springs are very lucky to have you. And obviously this could have been a 90-minute or a 2-hour chat as well. You've got Joe Rogan vibes coming out of you as far as podcast length goes. Nothing else that I see, Doc, but definitely you could be in the long podcast business if we let you. But I think you've really touched on some incredibly interesting things, and things that are so. I think you know telehealth is an interesting thing too, and I thought maybe it was something you have a ton of experience with. You probably do, but you started it at the same time that the rest of us did, and it's great to be connected with your experience of 25 years ago, your experience of the last 2 decades of this type of education and addiction treatment, and then stuff that's happening now. So it's very dynamic. I can see that it's changing, and there are things that we all believed in that don't really apply, or it's to our detriment to think that those things still apply. So This was a great chat. I really, we really appreciate you making the time for us.
For me too. I had a good time. Really nice. Nice to hang out with you guys, and appreciate the time. Great questions, and awesome. I'll get on the road.
All right, Dr. Jason Giles, thank you very much. Dr. Jason Giles, by the way, addiction medicine specialist, author, and speaker. His book, Outsmart Your Addiction, is available. And thank you for recommending a couple of other books that people might look into as well. Happy trails.
Thanks so much, Jason.
Thanks.
So that's our episode for today. Let us know what you guys thought about our interview with Dr. Jason Giles. I thought it was really impressive. The fact that he was calling us, on some highway, in the middle of California, just pulled over to the side. We really appreciate him taking the time. I know he's very busy, and he's going to be on a ton of podcasts. I think you're going to hear a lot about him and his life, his expertise over the next few months.
A statistic that we didn't dive into that we should have, and we probably have him on again at some point, and we will dive into this, is that 94% of people with addiction issues do not seek help. And that is a big reason for why he does the work he does, to get a bigger message out to bigger groups of people, because many people either want to suffer in silence, or they don't trust the process, or they don't picture their world without their drug of choice or alcohol or whatever it is. So he's doing great work, and expect to see more of his name as the world continues to turn. I don't know what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Expect to see more of him. Could have just ended there.
You could have. Okay, but reach out to us. Let us know what you guys thought. drvcomedian@gmail.com, Dr. V Comedian on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. We're everywhere. Ali, what do you got going on for the end of June?
None of your biz.
Beginning of July.
I've got...
I'll help you.
Yeah. I am going to be... lockdown in the city of Toronto. And I don't mean that type of lockdown. I'm going to be working in the city in a writing room. And so any comedy I do will be in this city as well. So if you live in and around Toronto, follow me, standupali.com, or standupali on Instagram and Facebook. Twitter can suck an egg,
Exactly.
Yes.
It's called X, but we're still going to call it Twitter. But just as we're so happy that Elon Musk is now out of the government, that's great news. We just heard that the other day, so that's great. He can suck an egg as well. But before we go, just remember that although I'm a doctor, Dr. Giles is a doctor, we're not your doctor. Medical issues we're talking about are for your interest and information only, and they're not medical advice. Please consult your medical professionals for actual medical advice. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.